Norman and Ray are two characters from the series The Promised Neverland. They are shown to be bright young children who are fairly clever, but who between them is more intelligent? Let's find out. The first section is Spatial. Looking at each category in this section, Norman would get all the categories. His observation of materials is better than that of Ray, as he sees what can be used and uses everything available to his fullest capabilities, getting this category with medium difficulty. Norman's observation of space is better, since we see he plays tag more frequently than Ray does, showing that he has better understandings of space, giving him this category with medium difficulty. And the last category Norman gets, as well as he can see how these things work together, such as using rope and tree branch to vault over the wall, taking this category with medium difficulty, which means Norman gets all the categories and all the points, giving Norman 28 points and Ray 0. Next is Interpersonal, and the first category is Understanding Your Intentions. Both characters struggle with what they intend to do at certain moments, but Norman usually finds the strength to overcome and knows the right decisions to make. Norman takes this with hard difficulty. Next is Understanding What You Will Do. Norman takes this as he comes up with many plans to attempt to get out of the orphanage, compared to Ray, who overlooks things he's done. Norman takes this with medium difficulty. Next is Understanding Your Limitations, which is fairly close between these characters, as they both see what they are limited by and attempt to work within it. Ray barely gets this as he found a way to get his mother to bring him things that he ended up using to help him get out that he wouldn't have been able to get on his own. Ray takes this with hard difficulty. Next is Understanding Your Knowledge. Both characters use this fairly well, but Norman uses this slightly better, as he was able to use the knowledge Ray had against himself to effectively trap him and get him to admit his double-crossing. Norman gets this with hard difficulty. Next is Adaptability. Norman gets this category as he was able to create several plans in response to quickly occurring differing situations. Norman takes this with medium difficulty. The last category is Emotional Control. Both characters get caught up in their emotions from time to time, but Norman appears to be able to set his aside more so than Ray does, as Ray often gives in to his emotions while Norman overcomes them. Norman gets this with medium difficulty. Norman won more points, so he gets the overall points, giving him 25 points and Ray 2 points. The next category is Linguistic. As we look at every category, we see that Norman takes them all. Norman knows what he wants and what needs to be said, compared to Ray, who just says what's on his mind, giving this to Norman with easy difficulty. Norman knows the order of things to be said better than Ray, as he explains his plans clearly to his adopted siblings, enough for all of them to collectively work together under the circumstances, despite how UG they are. Norman taking this with easy difficulty. Norman knows the words to best describe what he's saying for similar reasons to the previous category. Norman taking this with easy difficulty too. Norman won all the points, meaning he won the overall points, giving him 25 points and Ray 0. Next is Bodily Kinesthetics. Norman takes all these categories, as we see he is a far more active person than Ray is, somersaulting, jumping, and avoiding other people easily. Norman takes upper body control and reflexes with easy difficulty, and takes lower body control with hard difficulty, as Ray was still able to keep up with Norman. Norman won all the categories, so he wins the overall points, giving him 19 points in total and Ray with 0. The next section is Interpersonal, and again Norman takes all these categories. Norman understands others' intentions better, understanding Emma's perspective as well as Ray's, being able to figure out that Ray is a traitor, as well as predicting Ray would kill himself, giving Norman this with medium difficulty. Norman understands what others will do, finally figuring out that he can trust all his siblings with new information about the orphanage, taking this with easy difficulty. Norman understands others' limitations better, as he used everyone's limitations and worked within them to create a plan for them to escape, taking this with medium difficulty. Norman understands others' knowledge, as he knew the things Ray was good at and used that to assist him in planning their escape. Norman takes this with medium difficulty. Norman won every category, so he gets the overall points, giving him 34 points in total and Ray with 0. The next section is Existential, and the first category is Determining What to Believe in. It's fairly close between them, as neither have a specific belief in anything, but Norman seems to have actually values in life that Ray seems to lack, as he's really just looking out for himself. Norman takes this with medium difficulty. Next is Consistencies in that belief. Norman seems to get this, as Ray is pretty flimsy about what side he's on and why, as he switches sides often and supports certain actions even when they contradict some of his other actions. Norman gets this with easy difficulty. Norman won all the categories, so he gets the overall points, giving him 13 points and Ray 0. The next section is logical and the first section is gathering information. This is fairly close, but Ray seems to get this slightly as he found ways to get information that he had no way of getting access to compared to Norman, who only used the information available to him. Ray gets this with hard difficulty. Next is deductions of information. Once again, this seems fairly close between them and is actually hard to decide. Ray was able to figure out the true nature of the orphanage way before anyone else did, but Norman was able to figure it out too, but using much less information, as well as determining the workings of the orphanage on top of knowing its true nature. It's close, but Norman takes this slightly as he deduces information a lot more with much less and typically faster when presented at the same time. Norman takes this with hard difficulty. Last category asks how the information is used. Norman takes this one as he was able to use all the information available to him to outwit everyone and escape the orphanage, even predicting Ray might kill himself and the actions that might be taken from every person in play. Norman takes this with medium difficulty. Norman 1 more points, so he takes the overall points, giving him 28 points and Ray with 4. Next is musical and the first category is determining different sounds amongst each other. Norman seems to take this as he is able to use the different sounds he hears to predict where to find his other siblings. Norman gets this with medium difficulty. Next is determining where the sound is coming from. Norman seems to take this as when he plays tag he uses different sounds to locate people and predict where they might be. Norman takes this with medium difficulty. Last is determining what is making the sound. This one slightly closer as Norman seems to use this in his present age, but Ray says he remembers sounds and noises from before and after he was born, able to recall what they were. That being said, Norman still seems to get this from what he's done more recently in his life, taking this with hard difficulty. Norman won all the categories, so he gets the overall points, giving him 19 points and Ray 0. The last category is Naturalist and the first section is understanding of elements. Ray takes this one as he has read plenty of books, knowing how things work and understanding what everything is. Ray takes this with easy difficulty. Next is understanding of how elements work together. Ray takes this one too as he is able to invent several different devices to help him escape. Ray takes this with easy difficulty. The last category is understanding of animal nature. Norman takes this one as he uses it to predict everyone's actions, knowing how people act under certain conditions. Norman takes this with medium difficulty. Ray 1 more points, so he gets the overall points, giving him 23 points and Norman 5 points. In the end, this battle wasn't as close as one might have thought it was. Ray only took one category over Norman, and adding all his points together gave him 29 points in total compared to Norman, who got 196 points. Norman simply covers many more categories by a lot over Ray, who simply focused on one category. Norman was too much for Ray to handle, so Norman won and will be moving on to the next round. So what did you think of this video? Were the results as you expected or not? Let me know what you think in the comments.